Commander Veltar walked through the bridge of his ship as it moved closer to the blue planet called Earth. His green, scaly skin caught the light from the control panels around him. He had been a diplomat for many years and had met 17 different alien species during his long career. This time felt different though. The humans seemed normal, which was nice for once. "Sir, we have finished scanning the planet," said Crix, his helper. Crix looked like a walking crystal that could talk and think. His body sparkled when he was excited or worried. "The humans have basic space travel. They seem ready to talk with us." Veltar nodded and looked at the information on his screen. Human cities looked organized and clean. They had museums, schools, and beautiful buildings. Everything suggested they were smart and peaceful. The math in their buildings impressed even Crix, who was very good with numbers. The ship landed near a big building in Geneva 3 weeks later. A tall human man with gray hair came to meet them. His name was James Mitchell, and he was Earth's main diplomat. He walked with confidence but also seemed calm and friendly. With him was Dr. Emily Carter, a scientist who studied alien life. She had been preparing for this meeting for months. "We are very happy that you came to visit us," Mitchell said. A small device translated his words so all the aliens could understand. "Humans have always dreamed about meeting other intelligent life in space. We want to join your community and learn from you." Veltar liked what he heard. The humans seemed genuine and interested in peace. Over several days they showed the aliens their technology, art, and culture. Human music made some of the aliens cry with joy. Their paintings showed deep emotions and creativity. Their scientists asked intelligent questions about space travel and other worlds. Dr. Carter spent hours explaining human biology and culture to the alien visitors. She told them about human families, how they raised their children, and how they solved problems together. She showed them human literature and poetry. Everything pointed to a species that valued peace and cooperation. "We have moved beyond our violent past," Dr. Carter explained when Veltar asked about human history. "Our world government ended most major wars decades ago. We are ready to be good members of your alliance." The negotiations went very well. Humans were quick to learn and adapt to new ideas. Their science was basic compared to alien technology, but they showed remarkable innovation and creativity. Most importantly, they truly seemed committed to the Galactic Defense Coalition's main principles of peace and helping each other. But something bothered Veltar. When his computers analyzed human history, they found a strange pattern. Earth had experienced far more wars and conflicts than most planets before they developed space travel. The numbers were much higher than normal. Every species had some conflicts while growing up, but humans seemed to fight constantly. There were wars between countries, civil wars within countries, and even small conflicts between cities and tribes. The pattern went back thousands of years without any real breaks. When Veltar brought this up, Mitchell and Dr. Carter smiled and seemed relaxed about it. "Those were just growing pains," Mitchell said. "Every intelligent species probably goes through a phase like that. We learned from our mistakes." "Yes," Dr. Carter added. "We studied our own history carefully. We saw how destructive war could be, so we chose peace instead. That is why we created the United Earth Government. It has kept major wars from happening for over 40 years now." Veltar accepted this explanation. Most species did go through difficult periods before they matured enough for space travel. The important thing was that humans had learned from their past and chosen a better path. They seemed ready to take their place as the 48th member of the Galactic Defense Coalition. The aliens were impressed by human determination and intelligence. They worked hard to solve problems and never seemed to give up when things got difficult. This seemed like a good trait for Alliance members to have. Over the following weeks, humans proved to be excellent students. They quickly learned coalition laws and customs. They adapted their technology to work with alien systems. They showed respect for other species and genuine interest in learning about different cultures. The formal ceremony was beautiful. Representatives from all 47 existing coalition species attended either in person or through holographic projection. Mitchell signed the treaty with a simple pen, a uniquely human tool that fascinated several alien species. "Today humanity joins the greater galactic community," Mitchell announced. "We promise to uphold the values of peace, cooperation, and mutual aid that make the coalition strong." Veltar felt satisfied with the outcome. The humans seemed like they would be valuable members of the Alliance. They were creative, intelligent, and committed to peace. Their violent history was behind them, safely buried in the past. As his ship prepared to leave Earth's orbit, Veltar made his final report to Coalition headquarters. He classified humans as peaceful diplomatic candidates and recommended full membership approval. He noted their intelligence, creativity, and strong commitment to peaceful cooperation. He had no way of knowing that he had just made the biggest mistake of his long career. Humans had not actually ended their violent past. They had simply run out of enemies to fight. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you gave humanity new enemies to face. The peaceful, diplomatic humans that Veltar had studied were real, but they were only one side of human nature. The other side had been sleeping, waiting patiently for something worth fighting for. Soon, the Devourers would wake it up and the galaxy would never be the same again. The loud alarm sounds filled the command ship as Commander Veltar rushed to the bridge. His clawed feet made clicking noises on the metal floor as he ran. Something terrible was happening and he could feel it in his bones. "What is the emergency?" he shouted as he reached his command chair. Crix turned toward him, his crystal body flashing red with worry. "Sir, the Devourers have attacked Kepler Station. There are 40,000 people living there. The enemy has 300 ships attacking them." Veltar felt his blood turn cold. The Devourers were the worst enemy the Coalition had ever faced. They traveled from world to world, eating everything alive and leaving empty planets behind. They were smart, had powerful weapons, and never stopped until they consumed everything. "Send orders to all ships," Veltar commanded. "We need to start Evacuation Plan 7. We save as many people as we can and then fall back to a safe distance." This was standard procedure. When the Devourers attacked with overwhelming force, you saved who you could and retreated. It was the only logical choice. Fighting them directly usually meant losing everything. "Wait. Cancel that order." Everyone on the bridge turned to look at the main communication screen. Admiral Robert Hayes appeared on the display. He was the leader of the human ships in their fleet. Hayes was a middle-aged man with short gray hair and hard eyes. Something about his expression made Veltar feel uncomfortable. "Admiral Hayes," Veltar said carefully, "the tactical situation is very clear. Kepler Station cannot be defended against this many Devourer ships. Our standard procedure requires us to retreat and save our forces." "Standard procedure gets 40,000 innocent people killed," Hayes replied firmly. "No one gets left behind, Commander. That is not a request. That is an order from the ranking human officer in this operation." Veltar's translation device struggled with some of the words Hayes used. The meaning seemed to be something like, impossible devotion to saving everyone regardless of cost. This concept did not exist in any Coalition military manual. "Admiral, I must object to this plan," Veltar said. "The mathematical probability of successful defense is less than 3%. Coalition doctrine clearly states that we should preserve our forces for future battles." "Coalition doctrine just changed," Hayes interrupted. "All human ships, this is Admiral Hayes. We are going in to fight. Our mission is to rescue everyone on that station. Any non-human ships that want to retreat are free to do so, but we are going in." Veltar watched his tactical display in shock. Every single human ship in the fleet was turning toward the Devourer fleet and accelerating at maximum speed. From massive battleships to tiny one-person fighters, they all moved as one unit toward certain destruction. Captain Lisa Thompson's voice came over the communication system. "Marine Companies Alpha through Delta, prepare for boarding operations. We are going to land on that station and get those people out." Veltar stared at the screen showing the approaching battle. The humans were actually doing it. They were charging straight into a fight they could not possibly win. 300 Devourer ships against 30 human vessels. It was complete madness. "They have lost their minds," whispered Crix, his crystal form flickering with confusion. "Sir," reported the tactical officer, "the human fleet is requesting that we provide covering fire for their assault." Veltar found himself in an impossible situation. Military logic said the humans were committing suicide and taking the civilians with them. But something about their absolute certainty made him hesitate. On the tactical display, the first human ships reached the outer edge of the Devourer fleet. Instead of the quick destruction Veltar expected, something strange happened. The human ships began fighting with a style he had never seen before. Captain William Brooks in the destroyer Defiant lost half his weapons in the first exchange of fire. Instead of retreating for repairs, he accelerated directly toward the largest Devourer ship and crashed into it. The explosion destroyed both vessels. Why did he do that? Crix asked in amazement. More human ships followed similar tactics. When their weapons stopped working, they used their ships as weapons. When their engines were damaged, they continued fighting with whatever systems still worked. They seemed to have no concept of tactical withdrawal or acceptable losses. Admiral Hayes coordinated the battle from his flagship while simultaneously fighting 3 Devourer vessels. "Marine transports, you have a clear path to the station. Get in there and start pulling people out. Sir, we are taking heavy casualties, reported Captain Thompson. Understood. Continue the mission, Hayes replied without hesitation. Veltar realized that the humans were not just ignoring their survival instincts. They were treating their own lives as acceptable costs to achieve their goal. This was completely outside his understanding of intelligent behavior. The battle continued for 6 hours. Human ships were destroyed one after another, but somehow they kept fighting. More importantly, they were actually succeeding. Transport ships were reaching Kepler Station and evacuating civilians under the protection of human warships that refused to retreat. Commander, Crix reported quietly, I am reading strange biological data from the human crews. Their body chemistry is producing substances I have never seen before. Veltar studied the readings. Human heart rates were extremely high, but they were also producing chemicals that seemed to eliminate pain and fear while enhancing their reaction time and strength. They are not just brave, he realized. Their bodies are actually changing to help them fight better. As the evacuation continued, Veltar began to understand something terrifying. The humans were not being reckless or stupid. They were being methodical and precise. They had simply decided that saving 40,000 lives was worth any cost, and their biology was helping them achieve that goal. For the first time in his long career, Veltar wondered if perhaps the galaxy needed this kind of controlled madness. The battle for Kepler Station had been going on for 8 hours, and Commander Veltar could not believe what he was seeing. Everything he knew about military science and intelligent behavior was being proven wrong by the humans fighting below. Captain William Brooks was supposed to be dead. His destroyer had lost its main engine, most of its weapons, and half of his crew. Any reasonable commander would have ordered immediate retreat to save the remaining crew members. Instead, Brooks was using his damaged ship to ram Devourer vessels, turning his dying warship into a giant missile. Brooks to all ships, his voice crackled over the communication system. I'm going to take out their command vessel. Tell my wife I love her. Veltar watched in horror and amazement as Brooks crashed his ship directly into the largest Devourer battleship. The explosion lit up space like a small sun and destroyed both vessels completely. Why do they keep doing that? Asked Crix, his crystal form flashing rapidly with confusion. Their casualties are 12 times higher than acceptable military standards. On the surface of Kepler Station, the fighting was even more impossible to understand. Marine Lieutenant Daniel Foster had been hit by a Devourer energy weapon that burned through his shoulder and broke his arm. Medical scanners showed that he should be unconscious from pain and blood loss. Instead, Foster was still coordinating civilian evacuations while fighting off Devourer shock troops with one working arm. Evacuation Transport Charlie, you have wounded civilians at Section 12, Foster's voice came over the radio. His words were tight with pain, but his commands were still clear and precise. I will hold this position until you get them out. Veltar studied the thermal readings from the station's surface. Foster was fighting 3 heavily armed Devourer soldiers using only a broken piece of metal as a shield. He was dragging civilians to safety with his good arm while giving tactical orders to his remaining Marines. How is he still conscious? Veltar asked his medical officer. Unknown, sir. Human biology is producing chemicals we have never recorded before. They seem to be natural painkillers and stimulants that are much more powerful than anything we have seen. But it was Sergeant Amanda Price who made Veltar question everything he thought he knew about the limits of living beings. The human female had been caught in an explosion that should have killed any coalition species instantly. Her armor was cracked open, her left leg was clearly broken, and internal scans showed severe damage to her organs. She was still fighting and giving orders to her squad. Marines, advance on the power generator, Price commanded while dragging herself forward on her hands and broken leg. The civilians need electricity for the evacuation lifts to work. Sergeant, you need medical attention immediately, one of her soldiers said. I need you to follow orders and save those people. Price shouted back with surprising strength. Across the entire battlefield, Veltar observed the same impossible pattern. When humans were wounded, they did not become weaker or more careful. They became more aggressive and desperate. When they were outnumbered, they did not retreat or surrender. They fought with increased fury. Most disturbing of all was their emotional response to casualties. Every time a human died, their companions did not become scared or demoralized. They became angry. Pilot Commander Jessica White had watched her husband die in the first hour of the battle when his fighter was destroyed by Devourer interceptors. Instead of being overcome with grief, she flew her own damaged fighter through impossible maneuvers while tears ran down her face. Orbital bombardment target acquired, White reported, her voice steady despite her tears. Firing solution uploaded. Get ready to duck down there. Her fighter was held together with emergency patches and determination, but somehow her accuracy had improved. She was hitting targets that should have been impossible to reach with a damaged weapons system. Commander, Crix reported quietly, human brain chemistry is showing massive changes. Their bodies are producing compounds that appear to eliminate pain, increase strength, and remove the psychological barriers that prevent most species from fighting to the death. Veltar studied the biological readings with growing amazement. Human adrenaline levels were far beyond anything considered survivable for most species. But there were other chemicals too, natural drugs that seemed designed to turn ordinary people into perfect fighting machines. They are not just ignoring their survival instincts, he realized. They are completely overriding them. The most shocking part was how organized they remained. Despite their apparent fury and disregard for their own safety, the humans continued to follow complex battle plans and coordinate perfectly with each other. They were not mindless berserkers. They were intelligent, tactical berserkers. On the main battle display, Veltar watched Marine Captain Tom Richards lead his squad in a charge against a heavily defended Devourer position. Richards had been shot twice and was bleeding heavily, but he moved with the smooth precision of a healthy warrior. "Follow me," Richards shouted to his Marines. "Those people are counting on us." The Marines charged across open ground that should have been a killing field. Devourer weapons fire cut down several humans, but the rest kept running. They reached the enemy position and began fighting hand-to-hand with broken weapons and bare hands. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Devourers began to retreat from ground combat. The hive mind that had conquered dozens of worlds was encountering something it could not understand or counter. An enemy that became more dangerous as defeat became more certain. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "we are intercepting Devourer transmissions. They seem to be experiencing something their language translates as collective confusion and fear." Veltar realized what was happening. The Devourers were a logical, calculating species. They made decisions based on probability and acceptable losses. They had never faced an enemy that ignored probability completely and considered no losses unacceptable. The humans were not just fighting a battle. They were fighting a war against the very concept of giving up. Admiral Robert Hayes stood in what was left of Kepler Station's command center. His uniform was torn and covered with blood, but his eyes remained sharp and focused. Around him, his remaining staff continued working at damaged computers, coordinating the final stages of an evacuation that every military computer had said was impossible. The floor was covered with broken glass and twisted metal. Smoke filled the air, making it hard to breathe. Emergency lights flickered on and off, casting strange shadows on the walls. But somehow the humans kept working as if this was just another day at the office. Commander Veltar appeared as a blue hologram in the center of the ruined room. His reptilian face showed something that looked like respect mixed with fear. "Admiral, I have good news. The last civilian transport ship has left the system safely. All 40,000 colonists have been rescued." Hayes nodded without showing any emotion. "What about our casualties?" "Coalition forces lost very few ships and crew members," Veltar reported. "Human forces." He paused and looked at his data pad. 63% casualties across all your units." "Acceptable," Hayes replied, as if losing nearly two-thirds of his people was a normal part of doing business. Veltar's translator device made strange noises trying to understand this concept. No coalition commander had ever called such massive losses acceptable while achieving complete mission success. It simply did not compute. Lieutenant Colonel Michael Thompson looked up from his communication station. His left arm hung useless at his side, held in place by medical tape and determination. "Sir, we have confirmation from our outer scouts. The Devourer fleet is leaving the system at maximum speed." "Leaving?" Veltar repeated, his voice full of disbelief. "That is impossible. Devourers do not retreat. They consume everything or die trying. In 2 centuries of galactic history, they have never withdrawn from a battle. Through the station's damaged sensors, they watched something that defied everything the Coalition knew about their greatest enemy. The same Devourer fleet that had destroyed 17 worlds was running away from a battle they had been winning by every normal measure." Dr. Helen Parker sat on a medical supply box while a young medic treated burns on her hands. She had spent the entire battle analyzing intercepted Devourer communications instead of evacuating to safety. Her research had revealed something that changed everything they knew about their enemy. The hive mind is experiencing something completely new, she reported, her voice rough from breathing smoke for 12 hours. They are feeling actual fear for the first time in their species' history. Fear of what? Veltar asked. Fear of us, Captain Lisa Thompson answered. She was leaning against a broken wall while a field doctor stitched up a deep cut on her forehead, but her attention remained focused on the tactical situation. They are a hive species that thinks in terms of mathematical probability and risk assessment. We just taught them that some enemies do not follow mathematical rules. The truth was becoming clear through the enemy transmissions that Dr. Parker had been studying. The devourer hive mind had consumed thousands of different species across hundreds of worlds. Their vast computer networks contained detailed analysis of every type of military behavior in the known galaxy. But they had never encountered anything like human combat psychology. Every model in their database said that the humans should have retreated hours ago when their casualties reached 20%. Instead, the humans had fought with increasing desperation and effectiveness as their losses mounted. They are calling us something in their language, Dr. Parker continued, reading from her analysis. The closest translation is, the ones who become more dangerous when dying. Sergeant Amanda Price limped into the command center, supported by a medical brace that covered most of her left leg. She had refused evacuation 3 times and had spent the battle coordinating ground defense from the front lines. Ma'am, we have secured all the station's critical systems. The Devourers left behind some of their advanced technology when they ran away. Ran away, Hayes repeated thoughtfully. An entire Devourer invasion fleet ran away from 30 human ships. The psychological impact is spreading through their hive network faster than we expected, Dr. Parker explained. They share experiences across their entire species instantly. Every devourer in the galaxy now knows that humans exist and what we are capable of. Commander Veltar processed this information with growing wonder. In a single impossible battle, humanity had accomplished something the Coalition had failed to achieve in 2 centuries of warfare. They had made the Devourers afraid. The implications were staggering. For the first time in recorded history, Devourer fleets were changing their attack patterns to avoid systems where humans might be present. 3 separate invasion forces had cancelled planned attacks on Coalition worlds after receiving the data from Kepler Station. Admiral Hayes, Veltar said slowly, the Coalition High Command will want a complete analysis of your military tactics and strategy. Hayes managed a tired smile as he looked around the destroyed command center filled with wounded but victorious humans. Commander, our strategy is very simple. We decide what needs to be done, and then we do it regardless of the cost or the odds. We keep fighting until we win or until there is nobody left to fight. Everything else is just details. As medical teams began the long process of treating the human wounded, Veltar realized that the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently. The Devourers now knew that somewhere among the stars, there existed a species that treated impossible odds as merely inconvenient circumstances. Word was already spreading through interstellar communication networks. The humans had not just won a battle. They had won it in a way that defied every known principle of military science and rational behavior. The galaxy would never be the same. Fear was spreading through the Devourer hive mind like a virus, and for the first time in their existence, they were learning what it meant to be afraid of something that refused to die quietly. 3 months after the impossible victory at Kepler Station, Commander Veltar stood before the most powerful leaders in the galaxy. The Coalition High Command chamber was filled with representatives from 47 different species, all waiting to hear his report about the humans. He had never been more nervous in his 3 centuries of life. Honored members of the High Command, Veltar began, his voice echoing in the vast chamber, I am here to make an official recommendation that all Coalition military operations should be placed under human command, effective immediately. The reaction was explosive. Delegates from dozens of worlds jumped to their feet, shouting in languages that the translation computers struggled to keep up with. The noise was deafening as ancient species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia expressed their outrage at the suggestion. Commander Veltar. Chancellor Mordak of the Etherian Collective stood up, his golden robes shimmering with anger. Humanity has been a Coalition member for less than 1 year. They are practically babies in galactic terms. How can you suggest giving them control of our entire military? Because, Chancellor, they get results, Veltar replied calmly. He activated the holographic display that showed battle statistics from the past 3 months. Human-led operations have achieved a 97% success rate against Devourer forces. Our traditional operations achieve only 34% success against the same enemy. The numbers glowed in the air above the assembly, impossible to argue with. But numbers alone could not explain what made humans so effective. Veltar had worked with xenopsychologists for weeks trying to understand the human military mind. Admiral Robert Hayes appeared on the main communication screen, broadcasting from Earth's orbital command station. He looked remarkably calm for someone who was about to change the entire structure of galactic civilization. "Respected delegates," Hayes said diplomatically, "I want to address your concerns about human military philosophy. We are not asking for command authority because we enjoy fighting. We are asking for it because we are very good at ending fights permanently and quickly." Dr. Emily Carter, who had become the main liaison between human military forces and coalition science departments, stepped up to explain the technical aspects. Human biology contains what we call emergency response systems. When facing deadly threats, our species can temporarily ignore self-preservation instincts to focus completely on completing our mission. This creates tactical behavior that enemies cannot predict or counter effectively. "But your casualty rates are terrible," protested Delegate Zixera from the Peaceful Harmony states. Her blue skin was pale with worry. "By our standards, you sacrifice far too many lives in each battle." Captain Lisa Thompson, now covered with scars from 7 major battles against the Devourers, moved to the front of the room. Her left arm was still in a medical support brace, but her voice was strong and clear. "Delegate Zixera, you are correct that we lose more soldiers in individual battles than other species do. But we win those battles so completely that we rarely have to fight the same enemy twice. Our overall casualty rates are actually the lowest in the galaxy because we end wars instead of just fighting them." She was absolutely right. Human forces might lose more people in each fight, but they won so decisively that entire enemy fleets would surrender or retreat rather than face them again. The Devourers had abandoned 12-star systems rather than risk another encounter with human-led coalition forces. "The psychological impact goes far beyond individual battles," Dr. Carter continued her explanation. "Enemy forces now change their entire strategic planning when they know humans are involved. They avoid fights, abandon positions, and sometimes leave entire sectors rather than face units under human command." Commander Veltar presented his most important finding. "Honored delegates, the mathematics are very clear. Human military leadership reduces overall coalition casualties by 60% while increasing mission success rates by nearly 200%. They have turned something our computers can only describe as controlled madness into the most effective military strategy in galactic history." General Patricia Williams, the highest-ranking human military officer, addressed the assembly with the direct honesty that characterized her species. "Respected delegates, we do not want to fight your wars for fun. We want to end them quickly and permanently. When the galaxy knows that surrender is not in our vocabulary and retreat is not in our manual, most conflicts end before the first shot is fired." The debate continued for hours, but the final vote was inevitable. Faced with clear evidence that human military doctrine produced better results with fewer total casualties, the High Command approved the proposal by a narrow margin. As the session ended, Veltar updated the official coalition database with a new entry that would be read across the galaxy. Species classification: Homo sapiens, humans. Military status: primary combat command species. Tactical assessment: extinction-level combat effectiveness. Operational notes: essential for missions requiring absolute victory. No known combat deactivation mechanisms. Conventional tactical limitations do not apply. Warning: do not engage human forces without overwhelming numerical superiority. Recommend immediate surrender if facing human-commanded units. 6 months later, the impossible happened again. The Devourer hive mind, the terror of the galaxy for over 2 centuries, formally requested peace negotiations rather than continue fighting human-led coalition forces. They had never asked for peace before with anyone under any circumstances. Veltar added a final note to the human classification file: "Sometimes the universe requires species that have forgotten how to lose. Handle with maximum respect and unlimited gratitude. Pray they always remain on your side." The galaxy was safer now because it contained beings who simply refused to accept defeat. But late at night, Veltar sometimes wondered what would happen if humanity ever decided that the coalition itself needed to be saved from something. He hoped with all his hearts that he would never find out the answer to that question.